Yo, so we're kind of in a rush, but we were reading this morning and we wanted to share this with you. Yesterday we made a video about critical recognition, which we're posting now, um, and how the San people of Southern Africa, Pinker uses them as an example of demonstrating what he calls critical thinking and what we call a piece of critical thinking, which is critical recognition. And then he gives some examples, basically, that would be critical reflection, such as their knowing that correlation doesn't mean causation. Um, so, yeah, if you have critical recognition, you know that one of your mechanisms, if you see correlation, you will conclude causation. That's one of your mechanisms. Now, whether or not there's another mechanism, maybe thanks to your critical recognition that interferes, or your statistical knowledge that interferes, I don't know. But in any case, there is a mechanism that runs every time you see correlation that says, hey, check out this causal relationship. Or not check out this causal relationship. Hey, everybody, there's a causal relationship. Okay? He announces it to the other mechanisms in the mind. Okay. So anyway, so we're at the very beginning. So now if we look at now let's look at, so he actually talks about, I'll give you an example of the sand people. Um, Another critical, this is page 4 from Rationality by Steven Pinker. Another critical faculty exercised by the SAN is distinguishing causation from correlation. Liebenberg recalls, one tracker, Boro Shao, I have no idea how to pronounce these names, right? I don't know how to pronounce a slash. So, one tracker, Boro Zhao, told me that when the lark sings, it dries out the soil, making the roots good to eat. Afterward, Nate and USA told me that Boro Sa was wrong. It is not the bird that dries out the soil, it is the sun that dries out the soil. The bird is only telling them that the soil will dry out in the coming months and that it is the time of the year when the roots are good to eat. The San used their knowledge of the causal texture of their environment, blah, blah, blah. Okay. So everybody has a mechanism, correlation equals causation. And even Nate and Use, but they had other mechanisms that drew an additional conclusion and were able to correct for Boro Shao's conclusion. Okay. All right, but then he starts talking about Homo sapiens in general. Okay. Homo sapiens, of course, sapiens stupidly means wise because we are really Homo arrogans. That's what I say. And of course, Homo arrogans, that thinks it has all these reasonable faculties, would call itself reasonable and wise. But the whole point of this video is, well, just wanted to let you guys know, Steven Pinker's telling me I'm wrong. So here we go. So maybe we need to be more nuanced in our rejection of the faculty of reason. I don't know. The sapience of the San makes the puzzle of human rationality acute. We're on page 6. Despite our ancient capacity for reason, today we are flooded with reminders of the fallacies and follies of our fellows. People gamble and play the lottery where they are guaranteed to lose, and fail to invest for their retirement where they are guaranteed to win. 3/4 of Americans believe in at least one phenomenon that defies the laws of science, including psychic healing, 55%, extrasensory perception, 41%, haunted houses, 37%, and ghosts, 32%. Which also means that some people believe in houses haunted by ghosts without believing in ghosts. In social media, fake news, such as Joe Biden calls Trump supporters dregs of society, and Florida man arrested for tranquilizing and raping alligators in the Everglades, is diffused farther and faster than the truth, and humans are more likely to spread it than bots. It has become commonplace to conclude that humans are simply irrational, more Homer Simpson than Mr. Spock, more Alfred E. Neumann than John von Neumann. And the cynics continue, what else would you expect from descendants of hunter-gatherers whose minds were selected to avoid becoming lunch for leopards? That's me, bro. That's me saying that. That's me, that cynic. But evolutionary psychologists, mindful of the ingenuity of foraging peoples, insist that humans evolved to occupy the cognitive niche. The niche, or niche, but I combined the anyway. The ability to outsmart nature with language, sociality, and know-how. If contemporary humans seem irrational, don't blame the hunter-gatherers. I don't really know what to do with this. We have to see what's next, and you'll see that in another video. But just wanted to give you a little teaser, a little taste. But I don't disagree. I don't think he said anything unreasonable here. He hasn't really. He says, despite our ancient capacity for reason, and yeah, we have pre-programmed and are able to learn certain generalizations and shortcuts that could imitate reason. But I would say, yeah, based on the objectives of hunter-gatherers. And so, yeah, like, we do have reason in a sense where we are able to make certain steps. We have certain knowledge about how to treat information, what to do with information. Like all the descriptions of the sand people and this pad print and this hoof dragging and blah, 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 and the way that they're able to interpret that information to draw conclusions about which direction they should go for the prey, which prey are going to be easy to catch and so on. So we have that, yeah. But it isn't magical and unlimited. Just like a computer knows what to do with certain information, but you have to program it to tell it what to do. And humans, through their experience, through their interactions, and in combination with their pre-programming, can program new interpretive rules. So yeah, I just think we go too far with it by saying that we have rationality, which means we have a full system in place to know how to deal with every piece of information. And no, we just install certain shortcuts to deal with certain pieces of information that we learn how to deal with. Which means it wouldn't at all be surprising to me that humans have all of these beliefs. The sand people, they're still in their adapted period, bro. We have a video on this where we talked about the adapted period and the demand period. In the adaptive, or the adapted, or whatever I called it, period, that's when your environment, the demands of your environment, match the programs that you are already running. Or can easily add. So no wonder that the San who are living this hunter-gatherer society are proving rational, quote unquote, because yeah, the demands of their environment match skills that we've been developing for thousands and thousands of generations, skills better than other species of this cognitive niche, and we've had this cortex developing. So absolutely no surprise at all. And then here's what I would wonder. Because if I were wondering, hey, do humans have rationality? Here's what I would do. I would go, well, let's define rationality. Is it the capacity to deal reasonably with all information? Okay, I would say no. Now, is rationality having a set of certain interpretive rules that tend to get you to a good answer? Oh yeah, humans have some really awesome interpretive rules, but not but great ones that developed over thousands of generations as hunter-gatherers and stuff. And so in a hunter-gatherer society, yeah, we've got a lot of great mechanisms for that, a lot of great interpretive rules for the information that we would encounter in that life. And so here's how I would test whether humans just have interpretive rules tuned to the environment that they are used to. So interpretive rules adapted to the environment that they evolved in, or whether they have sort of a more pure total reason where it's a capacity to deal with any incoming information. Well, here's how I would test that. You take a human brain, you take it out of the environment which it's adapted for, you put it in another environment, and you see whether those interpretive rules or that reasonable system proves as reasonable with new information and new environmental demands. And if that human brain is able to, holy shit, oh, now we're talking about ghosts and blah, 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 blah. We're not just talking about following tracks and stuff. We're talking about politics and psychic healing and whatever else. Now, is that human brain able to treat rationally that information? No, Dr. Pinker. No. So it shows we don't have rationality. We just have a great mechanism so we should, yeah, so okay, yeah, so should we all go back to hunter-gatherer society? Absolutely. Then we won't be encountering all these, or the at least the flagrant fallacies won't be compounding. If we have a quick little instance of a correlation equals causation fallacy, totally natural, but then in a community, someone else might correct for it. Someone else, although they also ran that mechanism, might run an additional mechanism, and they correct for it. If all we have to deal with is some correlation equals causation mistakes, and then that in one it doesn't like compound a bunch, and then you don't even know how many fallacies led to whatever ridiculous statement was made, yeah, we can deal with that. We absolutely have the brains for that. So, I'm reading here that Pinker's talking about reason, and he's gonna. So I'm totally open to it, but I admit that then over the course of this video, I was like, no, but Pinker, we're saying the same thing here. Of course, the SAN are reasonable within the context of the thing that we've developed. Rules are for that. Rules for. Anyway, I'm just repeating myself, but. Because my dad sometimes talks like this, how, oh, but we need to develop this cortex to be able to, like, do everything, like, be smart. So we had developed this magical intelligence. Yes, we occupy the cognitive niche. We have the ability to outsmart the nature that we encountered with language that we developed and know-how that we developed or discovered. If contemporary humans seem irrational, don't blame the hunter-gatherers. No, I blame contemporary humans for their contemporary society where they have all these demands that their brains clearly can't keep up with. If you take those hunter-gatherers, you think those hunter-gatherers don't have wild tribal spiritual beliefs? You think there aren't any of those sand people maybe sacrificing a couple babies for their gods? I have no idea, but I'm gonna guess there are. And I'm gonna guess you take any of those sand people, you put them in front of a U.S. presidential election, and they'll be saying as much stupid shit as the Joe the plumber, the next whatever. I want to say Joe, but that is an actual person. But yeah, actually him. All right, let's just read another paragraph together. I haven't read past. Okay, so he says, if contemporary humans seem irrational, don't blame the hunter-gatherers. How then can we understand this thing called rationality, which would appear to be our birthright, yet is so frequently and flagrantly flouted? The starting point is to appreciate that rationality is not a power that an agent either has or doesn't have. Okay? Like Superman's X-ray vision. Yeah, so it isn't just this either magical capacity where you can now treat. Okay. It is a kit of cognitive tools that can attain particular. It is a kit of cognitive tools that can attain particular goals in particular worlds. To understand what rationality is, why it seems scarce, and why I don't know what's coming next, and why it matters, we must begin with the ground truths of rationality itself. The ways an intelligent agent ought to reason, given its goals and the world in which it lives. These normative models come from logic, philosophy, mathematics, and artificial intelligence, and they are our best understanding of the correct solution to a problem and how to find it. They serve as an aspiration for those who want to be rational, which should mean everyone. A major goal of this book Let me read that with less. They serve as an aspiration for those who want to be rational, which should mean everyone. A major goal of this book is to explain the most widely applicable normative tools of reason. They are the subjects of chapters 3 to 9. You know, joke's on you, Dad. Pinker and I are on the same page because my dad gave me this book. And while the 2.5 months we were together, I was trying to tell him rationality isn't real. Or at least it's not in the way that you think of it. And I took this. This seemed to me, I thought, oh, looks like Steven Pinker's going to disagree with me. And then especially this morning, when I read about, how the sand people have quote unquote rationality, and I thought he was going to attribute the irrationality of at least Americans to some other factor, like that's interfering with our rationality. And that's what I expected. But nah, I'm pretty sure we're on the same fucking page here, dude. Well, let's read that again. We got so excited. It is a kit of cognitive tools that can attain particular goals in particular worlds. So yeah, we have certain mechanisms that are really good, and that's the whole point sort of this channel, is that if we realize that we are brains and we stop having faith in every piece of activity of us, of our spirit, of our soul, if we realize it's a brain and some of the things that the mechanisms that execute are no good, then we can put sort of more energy in, or we can continue to refine and appreciate the ones that are good. So for instance, if Boro Shasha or whatever, if he said to everyone, hey look, the bird, the lark singing dries out the soil. And then someone else was like, yo, I think that might not be the causal relationship. There is a correlation, but there's a confounding factor, which is the sun. The sun both dries out the thing and gets the birds to sing, or whatever was happening. And then imagine that Brao Shao responds, okay, you have your opinion, and I have my opinion. Look, the lark is singing, the ground is dry. Like, look, that's what I believe. And then the other guy was like, yeah, but no, it's the sun is, and let's say Shao beep beep bop. Not Shao. Tao Su Du. He knows that he has critical recognition, so he tries to say to Shao, he says, "Yo, you're compelled. You have this mechanism. Everybody does. Correlation equals causation. So that's what ran. That's why you're saying that. Totally normal. Here I am telling you, no, this correlation actually doesn't equal causation here." And if Wow Shao was like, okay, yeah, I'm a brain. Of course, I want correlation as causation. Okay, cool. Let's investigate that, and we're not gonna all be like, oh, that's my opinion, that's your opinion. I have a right to blah blah. Let's talk about it. Let's compare evidence and so on. Okay, so here's the conclusion. If we achieve critical recognition, we will unlock whatever quote unquote rational or rational like mechanisms we have. Because we'll be able to identify those mechanisms that mislead us, that fallacious thinking, and identify the mechanisms that are a bit more useful, or anyway, when the mechanisms are executed, we can also compare to evidence. Anyway, critical recognition, the absence of critical recognition is okay. Okay, there you go. Okay, so here's what it is, bro. Here's what it is, bro. Here's what it is, bro. Here's the complete explanation for the irrationality of modern man compared to the apparent rationality of 21st century hunter-gatherer tribes. 1. 21st century Western whatever, are in an environment that demands things that they have not adapted to. Okay, so they are out of their adapted period. Okay, all species have always, or not always, have often been out of their adapted periods. That's what evolution is. When you're confronting a demand period, an ice age, whatever, and then you have to adapt. And so, the whatever random mutations help you in this with these new demands, those are the ones that spread in the community. Okay. Our brains aren't evolving as fast as our cultures and environments, the systems that we're creating are evolving. But we have this awesome ability to learn that other species don't really have. I mean, not nearly as awesome as ours. So we are in this cognitive niche where we can outsmart, where we can sort of think of things. So we should thrive in any demand period and that's what happened in the Ice Age. Whereas a lot of other animals died off, we uniquely were able to quickly adapt and find solutions. So the question is, so the problem, the thing that I said as far as the explanation for your rationality, I said it's because we're in a demand period. But that shouldn't actually be a problem. We should be quickly adapting. We have the capacity to do that. Which makes the actual problem, and this problem is revealed by the fact that we're in a demand period and not adapting to those demands as we should be in order to re-enter into an adapted period. The environment can be as crazy as it is now, but we've adapted to it, so it will be then an adapted period. The reason that we're not making that change is because of the lack of critical recognition and the cultural commitment to inner truth, inner divinity, naive realism, and all of those things we maintain because we lack critical recognition, knowing that we are brains. So yeah, we don't have to go back to hunter-gatherer society. What we could do instead is if we all had critical recognition, then we could be talking to each other like the sand people do, and we could be quickly adapting, changing, figuring out new ideas, new truths, and so on. So long as we don't realize that we're brains, so long as we think that we're souls that feel and know truth, obviously we're not going to adapt. We're going to stick with what we feel and know to be true, and we're going to maintain that, and there'll be no progress. So, okay. And maybe that's what the whole book is. We still have to read it, of course, but we'll see. But anyway, that's what I have to say. That humans were fucked, sort of, over the last for several thousand generations because we were able to imagine all of these things, and then we didn't have the epistemic humility to know not to believe 100% in all of those different crazy things that we were able to imagine. So there was this brain was able to imagine things, but humility was not installed. And then that brain was like, oh, wow, I can move out of my body. There are literally brains that believe they have left their skull. Literally. And so anyway, hence Homo arrogans. They're just like, everything that I perceive and think is true. It's real. Okay. And so then all of our ability to adapt and be reasonable and learn and all that got pushed out by our confidence in our imaginings. And it's cool to be able to imagine, but you're not supposed to actually just like believe in the truth and the absolute truth of everything that happens here. Okay, but that's fine. We're gonna correct for it. We're gonna compensate for it. We're not going to take away imagination or anything. All we're going to do is say, yo, brains, yo, imagining brains. Yo, brains that are all thinking they're discovering all these different truths. Your brains. So you might not be discovering truth. It might not be as sort of real. Naive realism isn't true. You're not mainlining truth. Then we're like, oh, okay. So So I'm a brain that's been just maintaining the same narrative for the last couple of generations about these religious texts or whatever beliefs. And I'm not letting the adaptive, the learning, the changing programs, the epistemic humility, the self-criticism, the skepticism of self, the desire to investigate, to check, to find fault, all of those capacities I have, and I'm turning them all off and just keeping this truth beating in here. So we stalled ourselves. So basically we had more imagination than we could handle. Grazie. Grazie mille. We had more imagination than we could handle. We didn't have the humility to go with it. Plus, we didn't know we were brains, and so we had no reason maybe to be humble. Okay, so now install critical recognition. We'll be the first species to know that we're brains, and then we'll be like, so some of these things that we think to be true, sort of just